The Corduroy Jouster by I Fucking Love Gingers. This happened over a decade ago, somewhere in northern Michigan during the summer. My friend, Kathy, 18, my boyfriend's half-sister May, 16, and I, 17, drove down from our hometown to visit friends, and we're on our way back home in Kathy's shitty little Geo. By shitty, I'm talking this piece of crap had engine problems, overheating problems, ignition problems, and was constantly falling apart. More than once, it had stalled or just stopped working in the middle of the street while we were trying to get somewhere. But Kathy thought we'd be fine since we hadn't had any problems with it on our way to our friend's house. It's a little past midnight, and we're roughly an hour away from home. There's nobody on the road, dense woods on every side, no streetlights, no moon. I can barely see past the windshield because I have a form of albinism, which leaves me legally blind in my left eye and with really awful vision in my right eye. My depth perception is terrible, and I can't see more than a few feet ahead of me at most. But usually I can make out lights and other cars when they pass, and sometimes street signs and people when they are close enough. We drove down this narrow, hilly road, and on the descent down a hill, the Geo makes a strange sound. Kathy starts braking, and when we get to the bottom of the hill, the car quits working. Kathy swears and turns on the hazard lights. She and I get out of the vehicle, and I help pop the hood, which causes a bunch of smoke to fly out. After the smoke mostly clears, Kathy tries to figure out what went wrong this time. We stand in the dark for at least 45 minutes, maybe longer, before we realize she couldn't fix the car and needed a tow truck. These were the days of MapQuest printouts and brick phones, so we couldn't whip out our smartphone and look up the closest tow truck. I decided to call my boyfriend, Caleb, to come pick us up and suggest we come with a tow truck to pick up the Geo when it was daylight. May and Kathy agree, so I take out my cruddy Nokia and call my boyfriend. So then I realize, no service. I ask May and Kathy if either of them have service. They both check and shake their heads. May gets a bit panicky. We all hold our phones up, trying to get a signal to no avail. It's hot as fuck, and after failing to get any kind of service, we are all feeling a bit spooked and uncomfortable. May begs us to do something because she's more afraid than Kathy and I. Kathy attempts to call May, and I wonder if the thick woods and the hill are blocking our reception. I tell May and Kathy to wait by the car, and I walk away from them up the hill we had just come down, holding my phone out. Still no signal. I walk further and further away until I reach the top of the hill. I can't see the outline of the Geo anymore, but I can still hear May at a distance. Even at the top of the hill, I don't get a signal. I know it's gotta be the trees in the way, so I get the idea to climb up a tree and try calling from there, just to see if it works. In hindsight, this was not my brightest idea, but me being an idiot, I saunter off into the woods in search of a climbable tree. At this point, I just want to go home. This is the only thing on my mind. I find a nice one with low branches and lift my body upwards towards the trunk. I climb the branches higher and higher. About midway up the tree, I feel my pack of cigarettes fall out of my shorts pocket. I'm kind of annoyed, but I figure I can just look for them when I climb back down. I take my phone out and hold it up once I get near the top. I have service. Relieved, I call Caleb, but he doesn't pick up. So I call again and again until he does. He finally answers in a sleepy but pissed voice, but I'm having none of that and simply explain our situation. He asks where we are, and I give him the name of the road and my best guess as to how far along we are on it. He says he will be on his way, and he tells me to go back and wait with May and Kathy. Then he yells at me for being stupid and climbing a tree in the dark with my bad depth perception. I assure him that I'm fine. He's skeptical, but says okay, and we hang up. I start climbing down the tree, but my hand touches a big glob of sap, so I stop and try to wipe the sticky goop off on my shirt. I'm already sweaty and gross, so I'm not too happy about the sap. While I'm failing at getting this crud off my hands, I hear the strangest sound from somewhere below me. Swish, swish, swish. I completely freeze, not being able to place what the hell that sound is, but it's moving pretty fast. I stare down into the darkness below me, but I can't see shit. I just hear this noise continuing. It comes closer and closer. Then I hear it right below my tree. Swish. And then it stops, right under my tree. I hold onto the branches as tight as I can and wait. I hear leaves shuffling and twigs snapping. After a while that stops, and the weird noise starts again, but it's heading away from me deeper into the woods. I wait until I can no longer hear the sound, then finish climbing down and jump out of the tree. It's completely silent now, besides the sounds of the woods, so I grope around on the ground for my cigarettes. I don't find them, so I make my way out of the woods and back towards the road. I jog down the hill, and when I reach the bottom, I notice May and Kathy are not standing outside the car anymore, and the hazard lights are off. I walk over to the car, and May rolls down the window a little bit and whispers in a panicked voice, "Elizabeth, where the hell were you?" I point back over my shoulder towards the hill and started to explain that I called her brother, but Kathy yelled, "What are you doing? Get the fuck back in the car!" I give them a weird look, but May unlocks and opens the door, and I crawl into the back seat with her, slamming it behind me. Kathy slams the locks and double checks them while May rolls up the window and makes sure the rest are rolled up too. One of the windows has never closed all the way, but there's less than a finger's space, so it's not too big of a deal. But May is freaking out about it, and Kathy has lost her cool as well. I'm still confused. I ask what the heck is going on. May tells me that a bit after I went up the hill, some weird person came out of the woods and ran really funny up the hill in the direction I went. They got freaked out and turned the lights off and got in the car. They thought he had got me. I am honestly scared at this point. If I hadn't stopped to wipe sap off my hands, I most likely would have got out of the tree at the time I heard the weird noise. I just knew it was that person. I tell them my story, and everyone in the car is scared shitless, but are relieved that Caleb is on his way. We only have to play the waiting game now. We sit on the road for what seems like forever. The dread we were feeling made time seem like it was going slower than normal. Kathy and May are looking out the windows, surveying the area. I'm just sitting there, hoping Caleb will hurry the fuck up and come rescue us. Suddenly, I hear May whine, "Oh my God," and she starts crying. Kathy snaps her head to where May is looking and stifles a gasp. I look where they are facing. I see nothing but the dark, but then I hear it through the small opening in the window. Swish, swish, swish. May ducks down, as though doing that will make her invisible, and Kathy hides her head behind the steering wheel. I follow their lead and sort of hunch down in my seat, but the noise comes straight up to the window. I can almost make out the silhouette of a tall, skinny man, and then he presses his face against May's window, and I finally see him. Nobody screams. You'd think we would, but it didn't happen. We all just stared at each other. He looks in at us for a while, until Kathy switches on her brights, and hoping it would scare him off, but it did nothing. The dude just walked out in front of the car and stood in front of the headlights. Maybe he thought he could block us from leaving? I don't know. I couldn't make out his features very well, but the guy had to have been somewhere a bit over 6 feet and no older than 30. He had the face of your average Joe, nothing special. Nothing really sinister or particularly creepy that you'd notice about him if he ran into this dude in broad daylight. Dark shaved hair, pale skin, long face. May said he had light-colored eyes and stubble with eyebrows that made him look like he was always concerned, but there was no way I could make that out, so I had to take her word for it. What was really weird was that it was like 80 degrees. And this dude was wearing corduroys, which is what the sound was. Corduroys make that swishy noise when you walk, and an oversized sweater with abnormally long sleeves. The sleeves went over his hands and flopped back and forth as he paced around the front of the GO. I'm not sure how long he was in front of the car, but it was a while. Then good old Corduroy starts doing something really bizarre. He bends his arms up toward his face, which I can only describe as looking like a praying mantis because the way his sleeves were hanging. Then he begins walking in circles around the car, rhythmically, taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like goddamn Willy Wonka, but on speed or something. This is where I noticed the swish sound matched up exactly to the same sound I heard when I was back in the tree. He was doing the 2 steps forward, 1 step back in the fucking woods when he was going after me, as though he wasn't weird enough. By now, May was sobbing. Kathy seemed like she wanted to vomit, so I felt like I had to be the brave one. I looked at the slight space in the open window, and when he orbited his way over there, I said, "Hey man, can you just stop? You're really freaking us out." Corduroy definitely heard me, so he swished to a halt and looked back into the car through the windshield, straight at me. I asked him very firmly to leave, and he took an extended pause, smiled, then Willy Wonka'd his way out of my line of vision into the darkness. After a while, Kathy said he disappeared into the woods, and May was like, "I can't believe that worked." We awkwardly laughed about what a weirdo he was, glad he left, and whatever, and we went back to waiting for Caleb, somewhat reassured, but still paranoid. But after some time, Kathy said, "Oh no, he's back." I couldn't see, but apparently he was doing the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, parallel to us on the side of the road. And this time, he had a big tree branch he was holding with his sweater-covered hands. May got scared again, and I held her hand so she'd feel better about it, even though I was ready to shit myself. It was awful, because I didn't know if he was coming towards us, or if he was moving away, or what the hell he was up to. It was kind of like when you knew there was going to be a jump scare in a horror movie. Then I hear Corduroy swish back towards the GO, and on my window, he smacks it with the tree branch. May and I panic, and I scoot as close to her as possible. They see the dude back up into the woods, then come running back, slamming the branch back into my window, like he's jousting with no horse. Thankfully, the window doesn't break, but I got terrified hearing swish, 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 clonk after a while, and he did this repeatedly. Kathy perks up in her seat and starts pointing at the road ahead. I see headlights. She blares the horn and flashes the lights. Lo and behold, it's our savior, Caleb. He brought his older brother, Alex, and they both get out of his car and head over to us. May's sobs turn into joyous laughter for her brothers as they approach. Now, Caleb and Alex have always been tall guys. Walking around with them was like walking around with high elves. It felt very safe. Caleb was 6'8", and Alex is around 6'5". So I thought 2 dudes taller than Corduroy Jouster would make him leave. But nope. Caleb walks towards Corduroy, trying to assess the situation. And Alex comes over to the car and taps on the window, tells Kathy to get out. She does, and he walks her over to his car. Then he comes back and puts the car in neutral so he can push it off the side of the road. May and I slowly get out, and May makes a bolt for her brother's car. I help Alex pushing the car to the side, while Caleb distracts the Corduroy Jouster by holding the end of his stick and telling him to fuck the fuck off. Corduroy yanks the branch away from Caleb and starts backing up by going 2 steps backward, 1 step forward, and disappears into the darkness down the street. I can't see him, but Caleb can. The dude backs up pretty far and then comes launching at Caleb, who sprints the other way down the road, because that stick could have really hurt him. He bumps past Alex, who had already got out of the GO and was opening his car door. leaving me behind the Geo alone. Corduroy apparently changed directions and aimed the stick at me, but I really couldn't tell. I just hear everyone shout, "Elizabeth!" This startles me. I jump to the side of the Geo, hearing Corduroy smash his stick into the back window with a loud thud and a swish. I take the long way around the car and sprint off into the road. I feel Caleb grab my arm and tug me over Alex's car. I feel like the wind has been knocked out of me. My legs don't seem to work, but Caleb manages to shove me in the back seat and scrambles into the passenger's side. By now, we are all safely in the car, and Corduroy is standing like a mantis in front of the headlights again. He'd abandoned his stick and just stood there, with no intention to move. Alex puts the car into reverse and slams on the gas, making me knock my head against the door, then makes the sloppiest U-turn ever and nearly drives us into the woods, but gets us back onto the road. Everybody was in 100% what the fuck mode as Alex tore away, far over whatever the speed limit was. May and Kathy swear they saw Corduroy chasing behind us after Alex made the U-turn, but there was no way he was catching up. The next day, I went back there with Caleb, Kathy, and the dude from the tow truck place. There was no sign of Corduroy anymore, but when we approached the Geo, we saw that in the space where the window didn't close all the way were my cigarettes. The box was missing, but they were all neatly jammed in a row along the window space. I have no doubt it was the work of the Corduroy Jouster. To this day, I wonder if he knew I was up the tree and took my cigarettes, or if he thought I dropped them and went further into the woods to look for me, or if he just found them later and decided to stick them through the window because he was fucking weird. I also still wonder what the hell his intentions were. I still have so many unanswered questions.